Pause. Your future self is watching every small choice you make right now. Not to judge, but to measure whether you're building a life you'll thank or a life you'll regret. Choose now what your future will applaud. Stand for a moment and imagine a person, not imaginary, but real, and who inhabits the contours of your life 10, 20, 30 years from now. Picture their face, lines you don't yet have, eyes that have endured and learned, hands that have built or mellowed. Imagine this version of you standing quietly behind the glass of time looking back. What does that gaze carry? Is it warmth and relief, or a small, precise disappointment? The future self is not a ghost of prophecy. It is a mirror in time. When you imagine that mirror, your present acts begin to shift. The reason this future witness matters is simple. The mind treats imagined observers as real. Neuroscience shows our brains simulate social judgment as if it were present. If you practice acting in the imagined presence of someone you respect, your behavior aligns with that respect. The future self functions similarly, not as a punitive deity, but as a moral and practical observer whose preferences you learn to honor. Once you internalize this witness, impulse loses power. The petty gratifications that demand attention begin to pale against the larger, steadier voice in your head. Will that choice help the person you will be? To take this seriously is to reframe time from a string of unconnected moments to a single, continuous narrative. Your future self is the end point of a story that is being written now. Each small paragraph you pen, the emails you answer, the minutes you squander on distraction, the rituals you honor, contributes to the plot. Story matters because humans are narrative animals. We not only live but also explain our lives to ourselves. If the narrative you are authoring now is careless, you will feel it later as a mismatch between the life imagined and the life realized. If instead you write with orientation toward your future observer, each line becomes intentional. This reframing is ethical as much as strategic. Consider the ordinary temptation. Delay the difficult conversation. Skip practice for the immediate reward. Choose ease over integrity. Each yields momentary relief but compounds into estrangement from the person you will be. There is a small moral rupture. You betray your future for a present comfort. The future self in this language is not an abstraction. It is an ethical relation, a promise to yourself. Keeping that promise aligns short-term behavior with long-term flourishing. This reframing is ethical as much as strategic. Consider the ordinary temptation. Delay the difficult conversation. Skip practice for the immediate reward. Choose ease over integrity. Each yields momentary relief but compounds into estrangement from the person you will be. There is a small moral rupture. You betray your future for a present comfort. The future self in this language is not an abstraction. It is an ethical relation, a promise to yourself. Keeping that promise aligns short-term behavior with long-term flourishing. Practically, invoking your future self has immediate cognitive advantages. When you anticipate a future perspective, your brain lengthens its time horizon. Impulses are no longer urgent dictators. They become negotiable offers. The frontal cortex, the seat of planning, becomes more influential. You begin to value delayed benefits because you are not merely an ephemeral agent but the steward of a continuing identity. This shift reduces anxiety, increases focus, and improves decision-making. Because you stop measuring your life by immediate applause and start accounting for sustained integrity. There is also wisdom in humility. Your future self will not require perfection. Rather, that version of you will request consistent fidelity. No one seeks unbroken exaltation from a long life. What they desire is a life with fewer self-inflicted wounds and more coherent meaning. So honor that imaginary witness not with grand gestures but with small, repeatable acts, a daily practice that composes a muscle memory of discipline, a recurring act of kindness toward those who will inherit your life, a modest investment in health that compounds into vitality. Let us not romanticize the future. The mirror shows truer things than hope alone. The habits you ignore have consequences. The rehearsed excuses calcify into identity. The small negligence becomes architecture. The future self will be shaped by the climate you permit now. Will that climate be one of reactive emergency or patient cultivation? Will your legacy be built out of hurried transactions or careful craft? Finally, the future self also accompanies you as an ally. It is not merely an external judge. It is a collaborator awaiting your summons. You can ask it questions. What would I need to have done to be proud of my life? When you answer honestly, plans emerge. The presence of that future witness clarifies priorities. prunes distractions, and cultivates an inner alignment between intention and action. The difference between a life accidentally shaped and a life authored is that the latter respects the future as an attentive observer. So treat time as a mirror and your future self as the steady gaze that holds you, accountable without humiliation. Make choices that, when applied to a long life, form a coherent, generous, and honest person. The present moment is not trivial. It is the soil in which your future walks one day. Tend it with the dignity of someone. So treat time as a mirror and your future self as the steady gaze that holds you, accountable without humiliation. Make choices that, when applied to a long life, form a coherent, generous, and honest person. The present moment is not trivial. It is the soil in which your future walks one day. Tend it with the dignity of someone who knows they will one day look back and nod. Closing line for section 1. Your future self is not a stranger. She is the accumulation of your present choices. Begin to act toward them with the respect we are drawn to the dramatic reinventions, furious bursts of productivity, one decision that flips a life. Reality is humbler and more merciless. Daily deposits are the currency of destiny. A single workout does not sculpt a body. It is thousands of small repetitions. A single kind word does not remake a heart. It is a habit of generosity. Your later life accrues from the sum of microtransactions you make with your time, attention, and integrity. Understanding this compound logic changes how you value the present. Compound interest in finance is a useful metaphor, but it understates the moral weight of habit. Time amplifies not only wealth but character. A slightly better choice today: reading 5 extra pages, sleeping 30 minutes earlier, refusing one petty retort, accrues power over months and years. Conversely, small concessions, lateness, evasive speech, habitual distraction, compound into inertia and regret. The mathematics of habit is brutal in its truth. Small things become big things without ceremony. Let us consider how to make daily deposits with moral clarity. First, define what constitutes a deposit. A deposit is any action that increases your capacity to live as the person your future self would thank. It may be learning, relationship upkeep, health investment, or cultural cultivation. The essential quality is intentionality. The act is performed not for immediate applause, but because it contributes to an arc. Second, size matters less than fidelity. Myriad tiny, reliable deposits outperform sporadic heroics because they alter baseline reality. The person who writes a page a day eventually completes books. The one who exercises intermittently never establishes endurance. Third, ritualized deposits. Ritual is the scaffolding that converts intention into habit. A ritual reduces cognitive friction. Once a habit is anchored to a cue, morning light, a cup of tea, a specific chair, the action becomes more automatic. Rituals are the daily ledger entries of a well-run life. They conserve will by making virtue less dependent on mood. The future self benefits not from occasional virtue but from ritualized care. Fourth, celebrate invisibility. When society rewards spectacle, one can be tempted to publicize progress as proof of virtue. The wiser path values private fidelity. The deposit made in obscurity is not weaker because it lacks an audience. It is purer. The person who trains for years in secret does not need applause to persist, because the work itself is the point. The reward is internal and later external, a life that coheres. Fifth, apply the rule of subtraction. Not all deposits require addition. Sometimes the greatest gains come from removing corrosive habits. Each hour reclaimed from mindless scrolling, each relationship exit that removes friction is a negative deposit, subtraction that creates space for creation. Think ledger, deposits and withdrawals. If you stop making withdrawals of attention and integrity, the natural compounding of positive choices becomes visible more quickly. Finally, think generationally. Daily deposits are not merely personal accounting. They seed future communities. Children inherit routines, cultures inherit habits. Small practices become institutions. The daily choices you make are gifts or burdens to those who follow. Plant well. The psychology of compounding demands patience. It resists immediate gratification. It asks for fidelity in the face of invisibility. This refusal of spectacle is the core of maturity. Commit to tiny acts and watch patience deliver. Over time, what felt like a small life becomes an extraordinary arc. Closing line for section 2. Make small deposits daily. They will compound into the only currency your future self can spend: A life worthwhile. Section 3. Avoiding future regret. The ethics of small decisions. If regret is a currency, it is one with a high interest rate. Regret does not merely sit, it corrodes. The most common regrets are not spectacular. They are the roads not taken, the apologies postponed, the hours squandered. Avoiding future regret requires an ethical orientation toward choice. It asks not merely what do I want now, but what will I wish I had done when I look back? That question posed regularly becomes a moral compass. Avoiding regret is less about prediction than about integrity. Imagine your future self asking for explanation. Why did you? The answer either aligns with a clear pattern of responsibility or with rationalizations and cowardice. The ethical demand is to be candid in the present so that your future self need never invent forbearance. Live as if the person you will become is present. Now, that transforms petty convenience into conscientious action,